Hey guys, it's Rishi once again, and today we're back with percentages. And in this video, I'll be going through what percentages are, how to represent them and calculate percentages. I'll be going through a range of different questions, which will make you much more confident than you were at the start of the video. So let's get started. What is a percentage? A percentage is a fraction that is out of 100. And a whole would be seen as 100%. And the percentages that are part of a whole sum to this amount. And again, as you can see, a percentage is written as a number with a percentage symbol. And the number can be an integer, a mixed number, a fraction, or even a decimal. And the key thing to point here is that this provides a consistent base to compare against when looking at fractional parts. For example, if we have 50%, this means that it's 50 out of 100. Or you could say 50 over 100. So 50% is the same as a half. And percentages are often used instead of fractions and decimals. And this is because parts of 100 can be easier to understand. So let's talk about finding a percentage. Now, as you know that a percentage is a portion that shows a number as parts per 100. Now, this symbol here that I've just highlighted means percent. So 9% means 9 out of every 100. Or you could say 9 over 100. And percentages are just one way of expressing numbers that are part of a whole. And these numbers can be written as fractions or decimals as mentioned earlier. So like I mentioned, we have 50%, which is equivalent to 1/2. Or if we were to convert this to a decimal, it would be 0.5. And they are all exactly the same amount. So knowledge of converting between decimals, fractions, and percentages is required. So if you are not so comfortable in those areas, go back to our channel and click onto the decimals, fractions, and percentages video, where we will then go through that in a bit more detail. Okay, so now let's go through one example question before we jump into this right away. So the first example I'm going to give is to find 16% of 40. Now, as you know, that is the same as 16 over 100. So to find 16% of 40, we simply have to multiply 16 over 100 by 40. So again, as you know, when you are multiplying a fraction with a whole number, we can put the 1 as our denominator, and then we can go ahead and multiply it out. So again, that would be 16 times by 40 over 100 times by 1. Again, I can cover this 0 and say 16 times 4 is 64, and then add that 0 on, and then 100 times 1 is 100. And now I've done that, I can divide it by 100, which means I have to jump 2 places to the left, and that gives me 6.4. So this example could also be worked out by converting the percentage to a decimal. However, this method may be easier to do if a calculator is available. So I hope that example was clear to you. And just to finish off, please remember that 16% is the same as 0.16. So to find 16% of 40, we could simply multiply 0.16 by 40, which again would give us 6.4. And the reason why this seems more simpler than the previous example is because I've already converted that percentage to a decimal. As you can see, I've already divided it by 100. I hope that was clear. Let's now get into this right away. Brilliant. Question number 1. Work out 10% of £95. As we mentioned in the introduction, that £95 is seen as 100%. So what we need to do is find out how do we get from 100% to 10%. And that we can say is by dividing it by 10. So likewise, we have 95, and if we divide it by 10, we get £9.50. So our multiplier is 10. Hence, we now know that 10% of £95 is £9.50. Okay, question number 2. Work out 50% of 1,200 grams. Once again, 1,200 is seen as 100%, and we need to calculate 50%, which is a half. So 50 over 100 is equal to a half. So again, we can go ahead and divide 1,200 by 2, which gives us 600. So again, we have 600 grams as 50% of 1,200. And then moving on to working out 1% of 200 litres. Once again, we have 200 litres, which is equivalent to 100%, and we need to calculate 1%. So how do I get from 100% to 1%? Well, we know again, we divide by 100. So that means I need to do the same thing for my 200. So if I have 200 divided by 100, that gives me 2. I can just cross out 2 zeros, and 2 divided by 1 is 2. Marvelous. Okay, question number 4. Find 21% of 160 pounds. So again, there's 2 ways around this, and I'm going to show you 2 different methods, and you can decide which method is easier for you. So the first thing we can do is simply multiply 160 by 21. So again, we know 160 times by 1 is 160. We'll then put our place value holder and our plus sign. And 160 times by 2 is 320. So if we go ahead and add that, that gives us 3,360. And then step 2 would be to get 3,360 and divide that by 100. Again, we know we need to jump 2 times to the left. So that gives us 33.6. So now we know 21% of 160 pounds is 33 pounds and 60 pence. Alternatively, we can go ahead and find 10% of 160 pounds. So again, we know 160 is 100%. So if you divide that by 10, we will get 16 pounds, which is 10%. We need to work out 20%. So again, we know if we get 20%, we just double our answer, which is 32. And then if we get 1%, we know again, we have to divide 16 by 10, and that gives us 1.6. So now we have 21. And if we add our answers here, that is 33.6. So as I mentioned, method A is where you times both of the numbers and then divide them by 100, or method B here, where you find out 21% individually by breaking it down and then adding both of your answers, just as we've done here. Okay, so remember, pause the video at any time and attempt maybe question 5 and 6 and then press play, and then I'll be then going through the solutions. Okay, let's go for question 5. Find 45% of 820. Once again, I'm going to go through multiple methods, and then whichever one you feel comfortable with, you can continue following that. As we get through to the middle of the document, I will then start focusing on one method just to remain consistent. But as long as we get the same answer, that's what we need. Okay, so I'm going to go for method C now. Find 45% of 820. So again, we know 820 is seen as 100%. I'm going to go ahead and divide this by 2, which gives me 410. And that's going to be seen as 50%. I'm going to work out 5%. So I know if I have 410, which is 50%, and divide that by 10, that's then going to give me 41, which is 5%. Again, my answers come from here. I've divided it by 10, and I've got the value of 5%. And the reason I've done this is because I know we need to calculate 45%. So now I'm going to get my value, which is 50% here, and my 5% here, and I'm going to subtract this. And that's going to give me 369. So as you can see, this is another method you could use in order to get your answer. Okay, let's move on to question number 6. Find 36% of 2,500. So again, let's go ahead and take step 1, 2,500, times that by 36. So you know 0 times 6 is 0, 0 times 6 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, we carry the 3, and 2 times 6 is 12, plus 3 is 15. We'll then go ahead and put our place value holder, and we'll do 2,500 times by 3, which is 7,500. And then we'll go ahead and add this up. And that's given us 90,000. And then step 2, we can divide that by 100. I'll cross out 2 zeros on both sides, and I'm left with 900, and that is my answer. Again, make sure if you're using this method, pay attention to your multiplication, because there's a lot of times that students get this wrong. So slow down and you'll get it correct. Okay, question number 7. Work out 252% of 120. Well, now we know that 120 is equivalent to 100%. And now this question is asking for something higher than 100%. So let's start off by saying that 100% is equal to 120. So 200% should be equal to 240 because I've doubled it. So out of the 252%, let's partition this to 200%, 50%, and 2%. Now we know here that 200% is 240. We know that in order to calculate 50%, we have to half 120. So again, if I write 50% here, it's going to give me 60 because again, I am dividing these by 2. So then I can go ahead and write this out as 60, which is my 50%. And then again, if I go ahead and work out 2%, let's work out 1%, which is 1.2, and 2%, which is 2.4. Now we've got that, we can write that down here as 2.4. Marvelous. So again, for those who must be thinking, how did I calculate 1% is 1.2? Well, I know that 100% is 120, so I divided this by 100. So again, jumping twice from the 0, 1 jump, 2 jump, that leaves me with 1.2. Okay, marvelous. So now all I need to do is simply add these values together. And by adding this together, I get 302.4, and that is my answer. Okay, let's go ahead and calculate question 8. Now, which is greater, 25% of 90 or 28% of 82? By this stage, you should now have chosen one specific method that you will be following. Don't try to do multiple methods for different questions because you will end up getting confused. So let's stick with one, and that's going to be multiplying the numbers and then dividing it by 100. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my page here. Step 1, let's have 25 times by 90. And again, we know 25 times 0 is 25. We'll put our place value holder, and 25 times by 9, we know that's going to be 225. And then step 2, we'll have 2,250 divided by 100. So we jump twice and we'll get 22.5. So now we know that 25% of 90 is 22.5. We'll then go ahead and work out 28% of 82. So step 1, let's have 28 multiplied by 82 here. 8 times 2 is 16. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. We'll then get our place value holder, and 8 times 8 is 64. And 2 times 8 is 16 plus 6 is 22. And then we'll go ahead and add these up together, and we get £22.96. So now as we're looking at which one is greater, you can now see that 28% of 82 is greater. So we can simply write that down, is 28% of 82. And that's larger. Beautiful. So again, what have I done? I've calculated the percentage out of both numbers and then presented my answer. In question 9, we can do the same thing here. And so with this question, what you can notice is we're now working with simple tens. So we've got 30% of 105. So we know if we look at 10% of 105, we just divide it by 10 and we'll get 10.5. We can then instantly times that by 3 and we'll get 31.5. And that's a quicker way to work out questions like this. I'm not saying to use multiple methods every time, but if it makes it easier for you, you don't need to multiply them by 3 and then or times them by a specific number and then divide it by 100. You can simply take a look, work out 10%, times it by 3, and you're good to go. And likewise for the second one, which is 32% of 98. You can simply work out 30% and then 2%, and then you can add it on. So again, as we know, 98 is 100%. We know that 10% can be 9.8, and then 10 times 3 is 30. And we can do the same with 9.8 times 3, which again will be 29.4. And then we can work out 1%, which is 0.98, and we can times that by 2 as well, which is 1.96. And then we can simply add it together, and that will give us 31.36. So overall, if we're looking at which one is greater, you can see that is 30% of 105. Okay, brilliant. You're doing great for coming this far. I know it can be challenging at times working with loads of numbers. Follow one specific method and you won't go wrong. Okay, question number 10. Richard gets a bonus of 30% of £130. So again, if we take 10% of 130, that gives us 13. If we get 30%, we just simply have 13 times 3, which is £39. Now we've done that, it then states that Connor gets a bonus of £40. So work out the difference. So now we've got Connor with 40 and Richard with 39. We know we have 40 take away 39. That gives us 1. And that's our difference, £1. Question 11. There are adults and children in a cinema. And there are 48 adults. And 25% of the people at the cinema are children. So if we have 100% and we have 25% being children, then we know that 75%, which is the remainder, must be adults. And they've told us that there are 48 adults. So 75% equals 48. So let's calculate how much 25% may be. So I need to find out how I'm going to get from 75 to 25%. So what I will do is I will divide it by 3. So if I divide my left side by 3, I have to divide my right side by 3. And that then gives me 16. So now I know that 16 is equivalent to 25%. So that means there's 48 adults and 16 children. And the question is asking me for the total number of people. So if we add this together, we get 100%, which is 64. So my answer here is 64 as the total number of people in the cinema. So I hope you can see how clear this question was and how I broke this down into manageable steps. Feel free, like I said, to pause the video, attempt the question, and then press play to see if your answer was correct. Okay, question number 12. David is getting paid $34,000 per year, and he's going to get a 3% increase in the amount of money that he is paid. So let's work out how much money David will be paid per year after the increase. So step 1, we need to calculate his percentage increase. So that is 3% of 34,000. So again, we can do step 1. We'll have 34,000 times this by 3. So 4 times 3 again is 12. And 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So now we've gone ahead and done that. Step 2, we can take our number and divide this by 100. So we cross out 2 zeros and we're left with 1,020. So we now know that David is getting a £1,020 increase. So we've calculated that. Let's go ahead and add it on to 34,000. And there we are. In total, David will be earning £35,020. Beautiful. Question 13. Abby buys a sofa for £540 and she pays a deposit of 15% and the rest of the money in monthly payments of £17. So how much monthly payments will Abby need to pay? Again, this is a real life question. I would highly recommend that you get used to questions like this. So when you do really need to buy something, you are good to go. Okay, so let's calculate 15% of £540. So we know this is 100%. I'm going to divide this by 10 and that will give me 54. So now I know 54 is seen as 10%. I'm then going to divide this by 2 and that's going to give me 27. And that again is my 5%. So again, 10% divided by 2 is 5% and that's 27. So overall, I need to add 54 and 27, which gives me 81, which is my 15%. I've now gone ahead and done that. Let's go ahead and subtract that from £540. And that gives me 459 left to pay. So now I've gone ahead and done this. I need to now divide this by monthly payments of £17. So I'll take my 459 and divide this by 17. So we know it doesn't go into 4, but it does go into 45 2 times. Again, 17 times 2 is 34. Let's subtract this and we'll be left with 11, followed by the 9 coming down. And then we'll see how many times 17 goes into 119, and that's 7 times. So we now know that the monthly payments of £17 will be made 27 times. So it will be 27 months for Abby to pay that off. So just over 2 years. So what have I done here? Let's go through this. Step 1, calculated my 15%. Step 2, subtracted it from the total amount for the sofa. And step 3, divided it by the monthly payments of £17. So I now know how many months it will take for me or for Abby to pay off the sofa. Okay, we are almost done, guys. Keep up the great work. Question 14. Dermot bakes 420 cakes, and he bakes only vanilla cakes, banana cakes, and lemon cakes. So out of the 420, we know that 120 is vanilla, 35% is banana, and we now need to work out the lemon. So let's convert 35% into an actual figure. So again, 35% of 420. Let's figure that out. So step 1, we'll have 420 times by 35. And let's add this together here. So that's 14,700. We'll then divide this by 100. So I can just simply take the 2 zeros away. But I will do it properly here. And that's 147. And now we've got that. We can simply subtract the 147 from the remaining value here. So we've got 420 in total. Take away our vanilla, which is 300, and then subtract our 147, which then gives us 153. So that's our total. That's our vanilla, and then 147 is our banana, and so we're left with lemon, and that's 153. So again, what have I done? I firstly calculated 35% of 420, which is 147. So we now know there were 147 banana cakes. I then subtracted that from our total amount. So I did 420 take away the vanilla cakes, which was 120, and then subtracted the banana cakes, which is 147, which then leaves us with 153, which is our lemon cakes. Okay, question 15. Amelia and Sophie did a test, and the total for the test was 75 marks. So we now have our total, which is 75, and Amelia got 56%, and Sophie got 43 out of 75. So who got the highest mark? So we now need to compare this. So again, as it's 56%, there's 2 methods that I would take a look at, either multiplying and then dividing by 100, or calculating 50% and then 6% and adding it on. For this sake, I'm going to continue with my multiplication and dividing by 100. So let's go ahead and get that done here. Okay, so for this sake, I'm going to take my two-step method where you times and then divide by 100. So let's go with step 1 here, and I have 56 multiplied by 75. And then let's go ahead and add this out. 0, 0, 12, and 4,200 before simply dividing this by 100. Cross out the 2 zeros, and we're left with 42. So now we know that Amelia got 42 out of 75, but Sophie got 43 out of 75. So we have Amelia, which is 42, and we have Sophie, which is 43. So overall, Sophie has got the highest mark, and that's by 1 point. Lucky Sophie. Okay, let's go for question 16. So now Zoe wants to buy 6 tins of beans for the cheapest possible price. And shop A and shop B both have a special offer. So which shop should Zoe buy the beans from? So again, remember here we've got 5% off the normal price of 48p, which is each. And then shop B has 65p each, or buy 2 and get 1 free. So that means if you get 2 for £1.30, that will equal 3 beans tins. Okay, so now what do we need here? They want to buy 6 tins. So instantly I can times this section by 2. So I know for £2.60, I can get 6 bean tins. And let's go for shop A. So then I'll go ahead and I'll multiply 6 by 48p, which then gives me £2.88. And now I need to calculate 5% and then subtract that from £2.88. So if I have 10%, that is 28.8 pence. And then divided by 2, that is 14.4 pence. So let's subtract this from £2.88. And that gives us £2.74. So again, which one is cheaper? Is it shop B or is it shop A? Well, we know that it's cheaper with shop B by 14 pence. So we can write that down. Shop B is the cheapest. I hope this question was clear. Let's now move over to question 17. Remember, if you need to revisit any question, feel free to pause the video now. Go and attempt the question again, and then press play to see if you got the same answer. Repetition is key here, guys. You cannot learn a topic overnight, so watch this video as many times as you can. Okay, question 17. Gary buys a dress in a sale, and the normal price of the dress is reduced by 20%. And the normal price is £36.80. So let's go ahead and work out 20% and subtract that from £36.80. So let's work out 10% first. Again, dividing it by 10, so we get £3.68. We'll then go ahead and times it by 2, so we get 20%, and that again will be £7.36. And then we need to go ahead and subtract this amount from our 100%. And there we are. And that would give us £29.44. So now we know that the sale price of the dress will be £29.44. Okay, question 18. Holly invests £500 for 4 years in a bank account. And the account pays simple interest at a rate of 1.5% per year. So work out the total amount of interest Holly has got at the end of the 4 years. So what does that mean? So what that means is that we'll get the 1.5% out of the total amount first, and then we can times it by the number of years and then add that on. So let's go ahead and work out 1.5% of £500. Well, we know that 1% is £5 because we divide it by 100. And so we know that 0.5% must be £2.50. So in total, 1.5% will be £7.50. But now Holly's investing it for 4 years. So we multiply this by 4 and we get £30. So the total amount of interest that she will get at the end of the 4 years is £30. And that's on the rate of simple interest, not compounding it, which means whichever money you make at the end of that year, you'll get 1.5% on top of that. That is at a later stage. For simple interest, you're simply working out 1.5%, timesing it by the number of years, and there we are. Marvelous. Over to the last question. So Phil invests £800 for 3 years in a bank account, and it pays simple interest at a rate of 2%. So once again, we'll work out 2% of £800. Well, we know that 800 is 100%, so £8 will be 1%. And if we're working out 2%, we know that will be £16. And because Phil is investing this for 3 years, we can now go ahead and multiply 16 by 3, which will give us £48. So the total amount of interest that Phil will get is £48. So what have I done? I've seen that £800 is 100%. I've then divided both sides by 100, and that's given me £8, which is 1%. And then I've times it by 2, and that's given me £16 for 2%, before finally multiplying it by 3 for 3 years, and that gives me £48. Amazing work. And that there brings us to the end of our session today. You've done amazingly well coming this far. I hope you saw the value in today's video. Once again, percentages are not easy. So feel free to watch this video again, attempt the questions. And again, I've tried to give you the most realistic examples as possible, so you can actually understand percentages in a better way. So if you have any other questions, feel free to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. There's more useful content coming your way, so keep up the great work, and I'll see you in the next one.